Hi, I'm Stuart Tickle from AWE, and well, we're here today at Bowers Wilkins in Worthing. It's part of our celebrations. I think you're going to be part of that with us.
Well, apparently, Stu. So my name's Andy Kerr. I'm with Bowers Wilkins. I'm the Director of Product Marketing and Communications for the brand. And, well, you're now going to tell me what I'm doing here, right?
What I'm thinking is, like, we get on, companies are doing great business. What I thought we'd start a bit earlier and then come on a bit more to the current history.
So, look, I mean, the thing most people don't, I think, fully appreciate about Bowers Wilkins is the history of the brand goes back a lot further than some people might imagine. We aren't just a loudspeaker brand. We started out, believe it or not, back in 1946 as a retailer, hence the obvious connection with you guys. So John Bowers came back after the war and he decided he wanted to go into business with a colleague that he'd met whilst working in the British military, a guy called Roy Wilkins. And the two of them founded a little shop called Bowers and Wilkins Radio Service Limited.
That was just up the road here, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. About a mile and a half from where we are right now.
Yep.
Near the Thomas à Becket pub, if you know the Worthing area.
Never been in there.
Little plug for the Thomas à Becket, free pint later. And that place became basically like the heartbeat of the local community in terms of supplying, obviously, radio. But then as the 1950s progressed, audio componentry, so hi-fi components. In the 1960s, they even went into the TV business. And for a very long time, they were renting out TVs and selling TVs to local residents in the area. Now, John, by that point, had separated away from the rest of the business. In 1966, he'd founded his own loudspeaker company, which is originally called B&W Electronics, then became B&W Loudspeakers, and today it's Bowers and Wilkins.
So to put it in context then, for those watching, and for you might not have heard our full story, but so we're celebrating 90 years this year. And one of the parallels is that my great-grandfather was basically a hobbyist of wireless radios, and he started Radio Menders Limited. So that was one passionate individual who had a desire to listen to audio and improve audio. So selling radiograms and then radio menders, the clue being as an engineer, mending radiograms, was part of, well, that is how AWE, as it was then known, Radio Menders, was founded.
So you know what, this is interesting because 90 years ago, if you put it in context, so John Bowers, before the Second World War, was an amateur radio enthusiast, radio ham, as he used to be known. He might even have bought some parts. Do you know what I mean? When you think that through in terms of the odds and how that worked through, because this is not a particularly large area in terms of distance and time between where we are on Worthing in the south coast and where you guys were, right?
Do you know what? It's just reminded because the company was in South London, and coil winding, which was from the kind of war era. Nobody wanted radiograms during the war for obvious reasons. So they turned into more of an engineering company. And that was the second phase of the companies from my granddad to my father's business was electro-winds. And they wound components. And part of that was coils for loudspeakers.
Okay.
So it's just struck me now that it's entirely possible, if not likely, because this was 20 people in South London on machines, winding coils, and there's a shared past there.
I think this is the bit that people don't always appreciate, right? I mean, if you think about the audio industry today, obviously, hopefully at least everybody agree it all looks pretty polished and pretty slick, and what we do is nicely formed and considered. But pretty much everybody in the audio industry, including all the brands that you and I know and have dealt with over the years, all started out that way.
Yeah.
A bloke in a shed. It's a fairly low-key kind of origin story for pretty much everybody, having a go with a soldering iron, seeing what they're doing and then kind of experimenting, and sooner or later it either goes nowhere or it turns into something and becomes a business. But it is interesting that we do have that commonality in background, especially, like I say, because today we've come together so much.
Yeah, and that's the kind of fast forward to the more modern history where our paths specifically crossed, although we met probably a decade ago, 20 years ago maybe, I don't know.
Not that old, Stuart, I don't know about you, mate.
When we were in our teens. So it was, the more recent history is how we got into the audiovisual, or back into the audio, I should say, was the evolution of the company. My father started out of that factory in South London, Thornton Heath, started a background music and PA speaker. So this was for pubs and bars and restaurants and clubs, discotheques. And they were making the speakers for that, but also started manufacturing amplification and power amps, and that led to background music systems. And in that premises, so that was under AudioLite, which was a separate business. But in that premises was a shop front, and that's where I started. So about 25 years ago, just still at school, started as a Saturday boy in what was then my dad's hi-fi shop. And that's just when Laserdisc, Pro Logic, AC3, surround sound was coming. Back in the days where only your front stereo pair speakers needed to be any good because your centre in your ears didn't do much. How things have changed. But that's what got me into music and movies. And that is then where AWE as we know it came from. From the retail side, we had a trade distribution selling to commercial installers. And then I recognised that the residential side was fairly untapped at the time, and there was loads of commercial just disties, still are, doing what they do in volume for PA and disco. So really that's when I understood that foundations of Cedia, for example, and we started, we joined Cedia, and I was on the board, and we really pivoted the whole business. And in around about 2000, we closed the retail, sold off the last bits of the factory, and it was me and about 6 others moved to our first premises in Epsom and started focusing purely on residential distribution, or distribution to residential installers, should I say.
And the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history, up until the point where we grew quite substantially and had the opportunity to meet you, and the Bowers family came here with James.
Yep, remember it well.
Yep, and it was like, right, let's have a look, and blew our minds.
Well, that's encouraging. I think, look, I mean, obviously the first part is all power to you, right? I think the big frustration that I felt in my many, many, many decades in the audio industry is how so many people, when they have that experience, really love it, really relish it, really enjoy what it does for them. But then at the same time, when you ask them if they've got it in their own home, the immediate response is, oh no, it's too intrusive, or obviously potentially costs too much, or it just takes up too much
I'll never
space.
hear the difference.
Well, all that one, but that's almost a separate. That's almost a separate one, and part that one because it's a good one too. But I think it's just the whole initial thing of like, I don't want my front room to be taken over. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be ruined by all these gadgets everywhere. And I think that's the bit that you guys do very well, and obviously the bit that we collectively, we as an industry, are trying to get better at, right? Trying to make the experience of listening to stuff and watching stuff and enjoying it less intrusive, easier to live with, and perhaps maybe even more desirable in your home, right?
And that's the bit that actually blew my mind, because obviously being in the industry, I was more than aware of Bowers and Wilkins and the quality of products and so on, but I'd never really got under the skin of it because I'd never had the opportunity, or for whatever reason, we'd never sold it. So coming here and seeing not only the products that people might immediately think of recent history of Bowers, but going to the traditional hi-fi side, it was just how much there is around the outside and how cutting edge as a company Bowers actually is. And it's that evolution that I think is so exciting.
What I love, I think what we all love about engineering, good engineering, right, is I think you can be a lay person. You don't necessarily have to understand it, but you can look at it and you can kind of get a sense of what it's trying to achieve. What I'm trying to say by that is, you can look at Concorde or a Spitfire or a Porsche 911 and you can kind of get a sense, that's fast. I don't know why. I don't have to. What I personally do because I'm a nerd, but
and cool.
most people don't know why. But they look at the thing and they just go, that suggests what it is. So what I've always liked about what we try to do is that it's an overt expression of the quality within, essentially speaking. If you look at what we do with something like them, the 800 series, but anything really, you get a sense of there being something special about it, there being something quite profound. It's hopefully not just there because it looks interesting, it's there for a good reason.
Yeah.
And it informs the engineering underneath. Now, the engineering underneath, back on the earlier point, you don't have to understand it. That's my job, and our colleagues and the many very much more clever people than me who work in engineering.
Yeah.
But we do have reasons for the choices that we take, and they do in the main yield better results. And that's your point about hopefully having your mind blown. It means that when you sit down and listen to it, you go, oh, that's not what I expected.
So this is a really interesting thread, but coming from the just someone that loves music and movies background, but then the technology and the engineering is then very intriguing and interesting. And there's a lot of products for product's sake in our industry, custom install in particular. And one of the huge things that we've been able to work with you to achieve in the CI market, and is demonstrated in, frankly, the sales figures and market penetration of the custom install industry of the brand over the last 4 or 5 years, is the brand. It's the sense of occasion, the whole experience. So you mentioned Spitfires, you mentioned 911s, you mentioned Concorde. Those are all things I wish I'd gone on Concorde. I want to go in a Spitfire. They do great flights over the South Downs. I'd love to do that. And 911s, I've had 911s classic, and other cars. We'll come on to cars later, actually.
Sure.
There's some stuff there. But you want all those things. If you said Aston Martin, McLaren, they have a sense that you can't really put into numbers or describes you. It's just something in you that makes you, evokes emotion. And I think one of the things the CI industry did very successfully for about a decade was sanitize all of that.
Yeah.
Sucked it out. And it's because, not everybody wants a speaker that's a physical presence in their room. And design and architecture and interior design is a big part of CI.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't think you have to lose the sense of occasion with that.
I'm with you as well, because I understand where you're going from with that, right? If you were to treat the delivery of efficient chilled air around a home and an adequate amount of lighting and the ability to control all that at the touch of a button as part and parcel of the services that are offered by a custom installation organisation, right?
Yep.
Then it's easy to understand how one could then view audio as part and parcel of the same narrative, because it's no different. It's another service.
It's a function. Yeah.
The audio in a home, or the video in a home, or the two of them together are more than just perfunctory.
Yeah.
They're emotive. They create something that stimulates and excites or depresses or whatever it is you're listening to, depending what your kind of music is. So that's, I think, where the emotion goes, and hopefully that's where we come in, right? I think the important point, look, I mean, again, you know this, but for the sake of everybody else, none of this is rocket science, right? This isn't about stepping into completely undiscovered countries and coming up with completely new blue sky things. This is just about solid engineering. This is just about stuff that you can prove. I know that the industry is kind of, unfortunately, kind of sometimes laced with, what's the correct word, mumbo jumbo, or something like that about how things work. And I know quite rightly some people are very suspicious about those things. But everything that we do, I think, you can prove. And you can quantify, and we can show you why it's better. It's up to you whether you want it, your choice, but we can show you. So the stuff that we put in a wall and a ceiling, clearly, of course, is different from that. But at the same time, we can also relate as much of that as we can into it, wherever possible. And that is the bit that makes the emotive difference, I hope, because it's been designed based on solid foundations of engineering that are designed to make speakers sound better. And that in turn gets you closer to the bit that's really important. And the bit that's really important is not the frequency response of the loudspeaker, is do you like listening to the music? That's what I want to get to.
Music and movies create emotion. And I think the delivery of that is part of it.
It's our job.
So Tesla Model Plaid, on paper, hugely efficient, insanely fast, very slippery.
Not sure where you're going with this one, honestly.
Well, if you put it into numbers and specs, and then compare that to a V12 Aston.
Oh yeah, it's a low-flying washing machine. No, I hear it going, yeah.
But on paper, if you're looking at numbers, it's the performance car of the moment. And if all you want is 0 to 60 in a very fuel efficient way, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want one.
No, I don't want one.
I've got a V8 in my garage. I've got an electric car to get to and from work because that's efficiency. That's what I want that for. But I want a sense of occasion when I sit in the car to go for a drive, and I want that same when I watch a movie or music. And for me, that's the whole presentation of everything. And I think that's what Bowers brand power is part of. And let me correct myself. The brand power is maybe the byproduct of what it is you do. It's not the brand power that makes it. It's the actual engineering and the products.
I think that's fair. I mean, listen, there are lots of different ways to crack a nut, right? I mean, you could argue that if you wanted to become a gigantic audio brand, perhaps the best way to do it is to spend lots and lots and lots of money on advertising. Maybe. I'm not decrying the brands that do that for one moment. That's their choice. The way we choose to do it is we spend a relatively substantial amount of money on research and development. I mean, as you know, but for the benefit of everybody else, we have as many engineers in research and development in the factory as we do working on manufacturing new components. So we have a very substantial resource of people who are tasked with nothing other than coming up with the next new thing. And that's a bit that makes a difference, right?
It's like DSP engineers. So, and this is something that's intriguing because we are in a very forward-thinking part of the industry. The custom install is, we're always used to be looking for the next shiny thing, and I think part of that has changed slightly because it sometimes comes back and bites. So what you need is trusted, well-engineered products that do what they say, but you are going to the mid to high end, to the ultra-high net worth users at the end of the day. And there needs to be, the customers we're dealing with that are investing in Bowers as a partner through us are very much seeing the benefits of that. So as AWE, as part of our evolution, we've got pictures of radiograms. We've actually got great granddad's old radiogram and a picture of him and so on, and the old Bible, basically handbook of photos with handwritten pricing. That's a very important part of what makes us who we are today. But the evolution of the products and the type of technology that we're selling has completely changed.
Yeah, but you know what I'm going to say? I think, and again, this is something you've heard me say before, but engineering is only as good as what you know today. You're only as good as the lens that you can look through today. So the people that were inventing those radiograms back in the day were making the best radiogram that they knew how to make in that period of time. And 5 years on, they were making a better one. And I do find sometimes in the world that I'm in, there's an inherent suspicion around the development process and, you can't possibly make it any better. Or alternatively, to your earlier point, even if you did, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Right? That's another one. And it's just not true. It's just not true. I mean, there are so many different examples in everyday life of components that people surround themselves with that are just a million times better than they were 30 years ago. The important point I want to emphasise, and I think you've already said it, is it didn't mean that the people 30 years ago were idiots.
No.
It just meant they were doing the best they could with the tools that they had then. And our development team is as good as the tools that they have today. And if we're sitting here in 10 years' time, hopefully we've moved between now and then, but if we're back sitting here again in 10 years' time, we'll have new stuff to talk about because we'll have moved on, because that's how it works. And again, that's the reason why a lot of us do it, right? That's the buzz. That's the excitement. It's the thrill that comes from the pursuit of something better. We have this axiom, you've seen it before. If you can make a better product, then you'll sell it, right? I find that fascinating because I've got that as a quote, and we've got John Bowers on recording saying it, right? So we know it's true. It's not something that's evolved over time.
Oh, here's the proof.
The point being, he didn't say if you can make a cheaper product, if you can make a higher margin product. He said if you can make a better product. So that's all we have to do each time, and then the rest of it hopefully takes care of itself.
AWE is a family business, so I'm fourth generation